Biomed, Nexus, daily updates. Your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. TLDR Revolution Medicines posted response rates as high as 82% for its G12D selective drug, zoldonrasib, combined with chemotherapy in first-line pancreatic cancer, and 47% to 50% when paired with daraxonrasib in previously treated patients. The data landed at ESMO GI over the holiday weekend, and Truist says they reinforce the company's path to leadership in the disease. A correction, and this time we are correcting our own correction. Our original reporting on Ipsen's Kartos deal was right. Monday's fix was the error. Details below. AstraZeneca's China kidney deal with CSPC carries 30 millimeters up front and up to $1.77 in total value. It is the third AstraZeneca and CSPC agreement this year, signed days into a congressional probe of pharma's China trials. Merck killed a phase 2 Alzheimer's program for futility, while Otsuka posted positive ADHD data, a reminder that neuropsychiatry remains a coin flip. The FDA sent Sanofi's Genzyme unit in Ireland a warning letter over manufacturing violations tied to its hemophilia drug, Altuviiio. Executive takeaway. Yesterday, we led with Genentech's divarasib beating the approved standard in RAS G12C lung cancer. Today, Revolution Medicines shows up with combination data that make the RAS story look less like a race and more like a land grab. Zoldonrasib, its G12D selective drug, produced response rates as high as 82% when added to chemotherapy in previously untreated pancreatic cancer, and between 47% and 50% when paired with daraxonrasib in patients who had already failed a line of therapy. Both data sets are early and both come from phase 1-2 trials, so temper accordingly. But look at what Revolution is now holding. Daraxonrasib, the pan-RAS drug that doubled survival in second-line pancreatic cancer at ASCO and is heading into a CNPV filing. Zoldonrasib, the G12D selective drug, now feeding 2 pivotal phase 3 trials. And RM055, the catalytic inhibitor that doubled chemotherapy response rates last month. 3 drugs, 3 mechanisms, 1 disease that had no targeted therapy 18 months ago. Truists read that this reinforces Revolution's path to leadership in pancreatic cancer. Looks right to us. If you are running a competing RAS program, the window to differentiate is closing. We also owe you a correction, and this one stings because it is a correction of a correction. On June 30th, we reported Ipsen's Kartos acquisition as $450 million upfront and up to $1.75 in total. On Monday, we told you that was wrong and that the $1.75 belonged to a separate Ipsen bid for Memo Therapeutics. We were right the first time. Monday's fix was the mistake. Kartos is $450 million upfront plus up to $1.3 in milestones, which is the $1.75 total. Memo is a separate deal at roughly $800 million. We got tangled in an ambiguously worded trade summary and should have chased the primary announcements before publishing a correction. We have done that now and the details are below. The underlying story turns out to be better than either version. Ipsen did 2 deals in a single week worth roughly $2.05 combined. Read full analysis. Oncology Revolution's second and third RAS drugs are landing, and the pancreatic cancer field is running out of room. RVMD Revolution Medicines presented phase 1-2 data at the ESMO Gastrointestinal Cancers Congress in Munich for zoldonrasib, its oral RAS on G12D selective covalent inhibitor, in 2 combination regimens for RAS G12D metastatic pancreatic cancer. In previously untreated patients, zoldonrasib plus investigators' choice chemotherapy produced objective response rates as high as 82% across 81 patients enrolled as of the February data cutoff. Safety was broadly consistent with the established profile of each chemotherapy regimen. In patients who had already received at least one prior line, zoldonrasib combined with daraxonrasib delivered response rates of 47% to 50% across 60 patients. Both data sets support pivotal phase 3 trials already underway. Truist Securities said the results reinforce Revolution's path to leadership in pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. Hard to argue. The company now has daraxonrasib heading toward a CNPV filing on the strength of its ASCO survival data, zoldonrasib feeding 2 phase 3 programs, and RM055 doubling chemotherapy response rates in early combination work. 3 shots on goal in a cancer that had none. M&AWE got the Ipsen numbers wrong on Monday. Here is what actually happened. IPN setting the record straight. Ipsen's acquisition of Kartos Therapeutics is $450 million upfront, plus up to $1, 3B in milestones for a total of up to $1.75B. It brings in navtemadlin, a phase 3 MDM2 inhibitor designed to improve on Jakafi in myelofibrosis. It was announced June 29th. Ipsen's acquisition of Memo Therapeutics is a separate deal, announced 2 days later, worth $200 million at close, and more than $700 million in total, roughly $800. It brings in Petravitug, a phase 2 antibody targeting BK polyomavirus-associated nephropathy in kidney transplant patients, a condition with no approved targeted therapy. Everything at Memo outside Petravitug spins into a new company called Memorizes Bio. Both deals are expected to close in the third quarter. Our June 30th reporting was accurate. Monday's correction introduced the error, and we should have verified against the primary announcements rather than a trade summary. The broader point we made stands and gets stronger. A French mid-cap just spent roughly $2.05B in a single week, which tells you the M&A wave has spread well past the largest buyers. China AstraZeneca's third China deal of the year came with $1.77B attached, and it landed in the middle of a congressional probe. AZN, the AstraZeneca and CSPC collaboration on kidney disease, we flagged. Monday carries $30 million upfront and up to $1.77B in total value, covering siRNA drug candidates for renal disease. More telling than the money is the cadence. This is the third AstraZeneca and CSPC agreement this year, following an obesity-focused deal in January and a chronic disease pact in June. Separately, Deerfield Management became the latest U.S. investment firm to put money into Chinese biotech. So the pattern we flagged Friday is holding. The House Select Committee on China has letters out to Merck, AbbVie, Lilly, Pfizer, and BMS, with responses due July 17th, and the industry is not slowing down. AstraZeneca was not among the 5 named, which may be exactly why it feels comfortable moving now. Watch whether any of the 5 signs a China deal before the deadline. That would tell you how seriously they are taking the political risk. Neuroscience, 1 Alzheimer's program died, and 1 ADHD program lived, which is roughly the going rate. MRK, Otsky Merck, discontinued its phase 2 trial of MK1167 in Alzheimer's disease after an interim futility analysis. The drug was an alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor modulator, one of many mechanisms that have looked promising in Alzheimer's and then failed to move the needle in patients. On the other side of the ledger, Otsuka reported positive data for centanafadine in ADHD, a bright spot in a neuropsychiatric field that has been, as Biospace put it, a mixed bag lately. Between Neumora dropping navacaprant after a phase 3 miss last month and Definium's surprise phase 3 win in depression, the CNS space keeps proving that the biology is still the hardest part of the job. Manufacturing Sanofi got an FDA warning letter over hemophilia drug manufacturing. SNY, the FDA, issued a warning letter to Sanofi's Genzyme unit in Ireland over manufacturing violations tied to Altuvio, its hemophilia A therapy. Warning letters are a serious step, signaling the agency found problems significant enough that voluntary correction was not sufficient. For Sanofi, which is already navigating the riliprubart phase 3 failure, an EU antitrust investigation over its flu vaccine marketing, and the looming Dupixent patent cliff, the timing is unhelpful. Coming up, July 17th, the 5 named pharmas respond to the House China Trials probe. Late July, FDA Advisory Committee expected on Capricor's Duramiocel. July 31st, Section 232 pharma tariffs effective for large companies. August 2026, Replimune RP1 FDA response. Imminent, Revolution Medicines, CNPV filing, Lilly Foundayo, T2D filing. Read, full analysis, Biomed, Nexus Pro Institutional Intelligence Brief. 3 RAS drugs, 1 company, 1 disease revolution. Medicines now has 3 distinct RAS drugs generating clinical data in pancreatic cancer, and understanding how they fit together is the whole investment case. Daraxonrasib is the pan-RAS drug, hitting multiple RAS mutations at once. It delivered the ASCO plenary data that made the company doubling median overall survival in second-line metastatic pancreatic cancer. It has FDA expanded access, an NEJM publication, and a CNPV filing pending. This is the near-term revenue asset. Zoldonrasib is the G12D selective covalent inhibitor. G12D is the most common RAS mutation in pancreatic cancer, which makes a drug tuned specifically to it valuable in a way a broader agent may not be. The new data show it working in 2 very different settings. Added to chemotherapy in treatment-naive patients, where responses ran as high as 82%, and paired with daraxonrasib in patients who already progressed, where responses ran 47% to 50%. Both feed pivotal phase 3 trials. RM055 is the catalytic RAS-on inhibitor that doubled chemotherapy response rates in early combination data last month, a distinct mechanism from the other 2. The strategic logic is sequencing and combination. Revolution is not choosing one drug and abandoning the others. It is building a franchise where a patient might receive zoldonrasib plus chemotherapy in first line, then zoldonrasib plus daraxonrasib after progression. That is a treatment paradigm, not a product, and it is the thing competitors have to beat. The vulnerability is execution. 3 drugs across multiple pivotal trials in one indication is expensive and operationally demanding, and the early response rates come from small, non-randomized cohorts where cross-trial comparison is unreliable. The phase 3 results are what count, but the strategic position is enviable, and the window for a competitor to establish itself in RAS G12D pancreatic cancer is narrowing fast. Ipsen's $2 5B week, correcting our own record and looking at what Ipsen actually did. 2 acquisitions announced 2 days apart worth roughly 5B in total potential value. Kartos up to $1. 75B brings navtemadlin, a phase 3 MDM2 inhibitor positioned as an add-on to ruxolitinib in myelofibrosis. Late-stage, clear regulatory path, oncology. Memo, roughly 800 ml, brings potravitug, a phase 2 antibody for BK polyomavirus-associated nephropathy in kidney transplant patients. Mid-stage, no approved competitor, rare disease. These look unrelated until you see the structure. Both are heavily milestone-weighted, which caps Ipsen's downside if the assets stumble. Both target indications where the current standard of care is inadequate, navtemadlin in patients who need more than a JAK inhibitor, potravitug in a transplant complication where existing treatments are used off-label and carry real toxicity. And both slot into therapeutic areas Ipsen already sells into. That is the mid-cap playbook right now. Buy late-stage or de-risked mid-stage assets in adjacent indications, pay heavily in milestones rather than cash, and build a portfolio of moderate bets rather than one franchise-defining acquisition. Ipsen is not trying to be Lilly. It is trying to keep growing without betting the company. Expect more of this from the mid-cap tier, because the patent pressure that forces the giants to spend applies just as much to them, with less balance sheet to absorb a miss. What the five do before July 17, the House Select Committee on China has responses due from Merck, AbbVie, Lilly, Pfizer, and BMS in 9 days. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca, which is not among the named five, just disclosed the financials on its third CSPC deal of the year, and Deerfield put money into Chinese biotech. Here is what we expect. The five will respond in writing on time with detailed compliance narratives emphasizing data protection, ethical review, and IP safeguards. They will not concede any wrongdoing because the committee explicitly said it found none, and they will almost certainly avoid announcing a new China licensing deal before the deadline, not because the deals are prohibited, but because the optics would be terrible. The tell to watch is what happens after July 17th. If a large China licensing deal lands in late July or August, it means the industry has concluded the probe is political theatre with no teeth. If the deal flow visibly slows into the fall, it means general counsels have decided the Biotech Investment National Security Act is likely enough to pass, that the calculus has changed. Our read remains the one we gave in June. The deals already signed are safe, the political risk applies forward, and the China science is too good and too cheap for the industry to walk away from voluntarily. What changes is the premium. Every China deal from here carries a political cost that has to be priced, disclosed to a board, and defended publicly. That is friction, not prohibition, but friction compounds. Revolution has 3 RAS drugs working in a cancer that had none. We corrected our own correction on Ipsen. AstraZeneca's third China deal landed mid-probe, and the July 17th deadline is 9 days out. What are you watching? Reply to this email. Visit the Pro Hub. Read full article. Is your company listed in the Biomed Nexus directory? 2,104 companies across 14 categories. Claim or upgrade your listing. Sponsorship slots for 2026 are limited. See packages and pricing. New Biomed Nexus signals weekly sales intelligence for life sciences BD teams. Learn more.